Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dope Talk. Today, I'm sitting with a very special guest. This is history. This is the first entrepreneur woman on the show, Teresa.
Yeah.
Teresa, we met 7-8 months back at the business startup weekend, and and you have your own app. There's so much I want to talk to you about. First is, where did you buy that shirt/dress?
From a vintage store in Melbourne.
In Melbourne?
In Melbourne, Australia.
Australia.
It's a man's shirt from the 1970s.
And then you kind of just stole it
And now I'm wearing it as a dress.
Well, it's cool. I mean, I like it.
Yeah.
It adds
Thanks.
style. I mean, well, question: How important are you like into how you look, as a professional, or you not? I don't really care.
Yes. I hope I look all right. No, I am. Yeah, totally. It's really funny. When I didn't have my own business, I didn't really think about it too much. Now, I care about what I leave the house in.
Where?
A lot more.
So it started when you got your.
It started when I left my full-time adult job.
How come? Like, what was the transition? I mean, obviously you quit your job, but like, what was the mental transition?
The mental transition was me wanting, I was obviously going to do something that I really wanted to do and be myself. So, and then I was like, well, I can wear the clothes that, represent me.
And look good in the process.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, when I first. Are you into like YouTube? Or you watch a lot of YouTube videos?
Sort of. I don't really have time.
Okay. That makes me feel like,
No,
it doesn't make me feel
do.
good.
No,
Doesn't make me feel good anymore. Okay.
That's what you do.
But like no, because like I used to be like this person. Did you ever used to be like this person who just walked outside with anything and just kind of didn't really care?
Just rock it.
Yeah, and then you realize, okay, if you want to be professional, you have to look professional, right? Or no?
Yeah. I think you do, but I think you can have your own style. Like, people would look at this and just be like, oh, what is she wearing? But, I mean, I don't really care. It's my choice. Yeah.
So, question, so you've been in the app world for... But before we get into that, you said, what was your background before we get into your current business?
Yeah, so I started it in an advertising agency when I was 18 in the tech department. And it was before technology and digital marketing and advertising was really popular. It was when it was just taking off in Australia. So it was actually a really good time to be a part of it. And I was full-time studying at university because I had really traditional Italian parents.
What was the course? Not the course, the degree. What was the degree?
So it was a Bachelor of Media Communications. Okay. So I was full-time studying, and then I had really traditional parents that were like, hey, you've got to go and work as well.
Well, was it a good thing or a bad thing that you worked while studying?
Well, it was great because I ended up actually getting a job in what was a 10-year career before I started this. So it was actually beneficial. But at the time, I was like 18 and not wanting to study full-time, work full-time in such a serious job.
So how were you as an employee?
How was I as an employee?
Yeah, for the first couple of,
I was actually, I look back at this a lot because I was very young when I started working in my serious job. And I think I was super professional and just really, really hardworking.
Word.
Yeah, I've always been like that. So, and then when I got to 24, 25, I was like, gosh, I'm over this serious working stuff because I've been doing it since I was so young. Yeah, but I was never really, I was a bit of a menace. In advertising agencies, there's a lot of fun. You have parties and whatever, so that was fun. And I took advantage of that, but I worked really hard. I did.
That's cool because I'm thinking about when I first took my first job and I was working. I was a great student.
Yeah.
I was a terrible worker.
Yeah.
I know because it's different, it's just different. I was a terrible worker,
Yeah.
So maybe to this day. But anyways, so that turned into a 10-year career in the advertising field, and then you actually went on and started your own. What was your first venture?
So my first venture while I was still at the advertising agency, I've always worked in tech, right? Technology. My first venture was a digital consultancy. So I'd go to big brands with my current co-founder now and consult them on how to market digitally and what they needed to do to digitalize their brands.
And you was doing this while you was working.
So I was doing that while I was working. I've always been a serial overworker, right? But I started the consultancy with Zia. We just thought we'd try it, and then we would go and do digital and social media strategies and build websites, marketing campaigns, online ads. And then whilst we were doing the consultancy, I started an e-commerce shoe store where I imported boots, handmade boots from Mexico to Australia.
So at one point you was doing 3 things at one time?
Correct. And everyone was like, why are you doing all this stuff? And I was like, because I can do it all. But I soon realized that I couldn't, because it's a lot.
Before we tap into that, so people who have the, because I had a job, for the past year as a graphic designer, and that was my first real full-time job actually, and it was, shows you my age, right?
Finally.
shows you my age a little bit, right? Shit.
I know.
Anyways, so the first full-time job, I've had full-time jobs before, just 3-4 months as internships, what have you. First time for an extended period amount of time, and it does kind of take away the energy out of you a little bit. So how did you actually manage that? Coming from work, but still getting energy to do this and still making time for this. How did you balance that?
I think because I didn't know what I was going to do, but I always knew that I wanted to have my own venture and I wanted to do my own thing. So part of it was they started as side projects, the consultancy started as a side project, so did the e-commerce store, but they became too big for me to do on the side, which is why I left. But yeah, it totally is energy sucking, but I think I'm very passionate about technology. I love it. I'm a bit of a nerd. So it was a pleasure. It didn't feel like such a hard slog.
It didn't feel like you was working on the side.
No. It felt like I was working when I was working in the ad agencies for other people, but not on my own stuff.
So
didn't feel like work.
See, the reason why I might dive into this for a little bit longer, because I'm just fresh. I just quit my job a little more than a week ago, and thank you. And because I maybe had the same feeling as you. Well, I built something on the side, but this is not a question, it's more of a statement. It's I really do appreciate the fact that there's a bug on your shirt.
Thanks.
I really do appreciate the fact that I was able to build something on the side.
Yeah,
so that
totally.
when you get out, you don't get out with nothing.
Exactly.
And it's a shame that people quit their jobs and have nothing. So
Totally.
after you quit your job,
Yep.
you quickly you had your first venture.
Yep.
And then, so how did your schedule change?
I worked a lot more, believe it or not. Well, and then whilst I was doing the consultancy, I had the idea for this app, which is actually what I do now. And so my schedule, I was working so I could fund or start my actual startup. And so my schedule changed based on my priorities, right?
And the reason why I asked that, again, because I'm in this right now, right?
Yeah.
So, because I think we spoke about this off camera, time becoming less linear.
Totally.
So what's your perception of time now?
Time. I work, there is no 9 till 5. There has never really been any 9 till 5 for me though, which is why I think I've always been born to do something not so corporate and rigid. I think people need to work when it's best for them and they're going to be the most productive. I also think it's really unhealthy to work 16-hour days intensely, and people are mostly productive when it suits them. You might be someone that wants to sleep in the morning. I get up at 5 a.m. People think I'm mad, right?
Yes.
But
Well, what time do you go to sleep?
Really? 1 sometimes? But it depends. It varies, right?
I need 8 hours. I need 8 hours.
But see, that's you. That's your body type, right? For me, I'm I'm up and at 'em, and I get my best work done in the morning, first thing. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, wild.
So what do you think keeps you working?
I am driven to make some kind of impact on this world. Right now, doing what I'm doing, the reason that I am doing it is because I want to bring convenience and free up people's time when they travel, right? That's my main focus now. But if I can make people's lives easier and impact them in some way. I like to be able to do that.
So, when you started your company, what was the first things you said, okay, you absolutely needed, in terms of personnel? Who were the first types of people that you needed on the team?
Because we're a travel tech app, we needed developers. So we were fortunate enough, obviously, to have my CTO, that's my friend. So he was one of our first hires, I guess, and a data scientist and machine learning engineer. Because again, we're a technology company, so it was mainly to be able to build the product that we wanted to produce.
And you were able to receive investments, more than once. So, what were some of the key elements you think is to receiving an investment here in China?
Transparency and building relationships. So that's a massive thing. Building out your network, not necessarily directly with investors, but with you, for example, you might know someone else that knows someone else that recommends you. So it's all about the networks and the relationships here. I found that very beneficial. And then maintaining those. So actually having coffees with people and communicating with them, sending them monthly emails, even though you might not have so much great news, but you might be like, all right, this month, this happened in my business, and sharing that knowledge with key kind of stakeholders who are important to you to keep in the loop. I found that really beneficial.
And so what were the things what are some of maybe the mistakes that you made early on in trying to reach out to investors?
The assumption that we would be able to get money quickly. Yeah,
so
it takes time.
How many investors did you have to contact?
Right now we're still fundraising. So we've been fundraising for about 5 months. And in those 5 months, I think we've probably pitched to maybe 15 investors, but contacted 50 to 100 more. Wow. Yeah.
And how do you pick up the phone, or how do you contact an investor? What do you say? What's the email like?
We don't cold email. So it's basically just, again, based on a warm introduction. Yeah. Most of them, some of them have been cold, but you don't get a response. So we stopped doing that. We realized it's about the relationship.
So then here's a question, because I've played around with a couple of apps. Everyone is using an app.
Yeah.
What's the business model? What's the revenue generation from building an app?
So, there's different models for different people, but for us, so we make a percentage on the transactions in our app. So if you buy a service, we take a percentage of that. And we also negotiate discounts with all of our providers. So you actually don't end up paying extra. So we make money off the customer, and then we have partners that we make money off. So we work with corporates, and we work with hotels and banks and airlines, and they pay us a fee per business traveler that we service for them.
So now that we're discussing more deeply about your app, can you kind of give a brief intro of what it is, a brief explanation of what it is?
Yeah, sure. So it's an app originally it started for business travelers. So when they'd get to a new city, their accommodation and flights would always be booked. But they might come to Shanghai for the first time and be like, where do I get a private driver? How can I get my laundry done? I need a translator to come with me for the day. Where can I get the best massage? Where can I take my client for dinner? There are all these on lifestyle services, on the ground ancillary services that weren't being met for business travelers, particularly I'm going to say our age, even though I'm older, millennial business travelers. And so we found that there was a gap in the market, because Sarah and myself, who started the business, had the problem when we get to a new city, we'd have all these things that we need, lifestyle services, or we want to go and do a local experience and have dinner with a local. We couldn't get it. So that's where it started, from that need. And now we're starting to move more into leisure travel, because a lot of our business travelers are using us when they go on holidays with their family, and just looking for the best experiences and some unique kind of experiences. So it's not like going to see the Bund in Shanghai. It's going and having, a local tour of a local house and listening to the family's history and stuff.
Well, so one, that's really dope, and I appreciate that. I can personally appreciate that, because I've been to a few countries, and even just coming in Shanghai, and it was it's and then it's a different language, totally. And different times. It's just different everything. So I appreciate that. I think it's very cool. And my question is, how do you reach out to? How do people find out about your app?
Yeah. So part of why we're raising money is because we are going to do a couple of marketing campaigns. But prior to that, it's all been like word of mouth, networks again, and we've done a couple of KOL campaigns. So a few influencers here have helped push it out for us to get the initial traction. Yeah, so in China and throughout, so we're in China, Southeast Asia and Australia. And most of our users now, we've got about 40% Chinese and the rest are Western.
So you help people when they come in a new city, like find all these different services. Where does this idea come from?
I would travel a lot for work back in the advertising days, and I would get to a new place. Like I wouldn't even know that I'm going to a specific country until like the day before. Work would just send me, and so I'd be time poor and not really know where I'm going and end up in a new city and might have a couple of hours spare, might not, but would want everything sorted. And my like I said, like my accommodation and flights would be always sorted by my company, but everything else around me, I was like, what do I do? And so part of what we're solving is the convenience factor, time, and the fact that there's so much noise now. Like there's like TripAdvisor and Yelp and all of that. You have to trawl through people's like subjective reviews, and we're personalising it so we match it to your taste.
No, but you know what's really cool is like, I know a lot of people who want to build an app. Don't we all know somebody who wants to build an app, but you've actually made it a physical thing?
Yeah.
So what's the first 3 steps, the 3 practical steps that you need to take if you want to build an app?
I would say, so not just an app, but any kind of piece of technology, right? Build a prototype. So firstly, the first step before you actually go and write any code would be to validate it. Validate your idea in some way, shape or form. And that might be like getting a focus group of 20 people together and asking them what they think, you know, your potential target audience. That would be the first step to make sure that there is a need for the app, right? And that the pain point isn't just yours, it's other people's.
How did you determine that your app was actually useful?
So we really, really manually tested it. Before we wrote any code at all, we basically called on a bunch of colleagues and networks between Melbourne and Sydney and got them to manually let us know when they needed a service when they were on a business trip. And we were like completely inundated with it. And so we were like, okay, people actually have this need. And then we did a couple of focus groups, particularly in Asia, before we were coming here. But yeah, so we validated it first in Australia.
Step 1 is to validate the idea.
Yeah.
Step 2?
Second one was to write down absolutely everything, all the functions that you think you might need, and then again strip them back and work out what's reasonable to start with. So we built a really, really basic prototype, and it wasn't the app that's out in the App Store now. It was something awful that we were so embarrassed of, but it allowed us to actually get something working that people could play with and that we could get some feedback on, right?
And that's
Real
important.
customers giving feedback.
I think, like, how many business partners do you have?
3,000.
Business partners.
Yeah, so we've got 3,000 providers in 21 cities.
Oh, I'm sorry. Like how many?
Oh, sorry.
Business. What do you
do you
think?
mean?
What did you think? A business partner? Like how many people do you
as
work?
in how many people started the company?
Yeah.
So 2 of us, myself and Zia.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you're 2 of the most smartest people in this planet,
Probably.
because the amount of people who seek perfection and it's just killing them. You know, you put out a bad product. You know, but
At the time, though, we hated it, right? And we were so embarrassed, but we had to put it out, and it actually got us to China. It got us investment.
like.
You know, like, and we were just like,
No, but that's cool because the amount of people who would like just not put it out or what have you, and someone else might like it, you know. So
Totally.
So you put out the idea. So first is
Validation.
Validation.
Prototype.
Prototype.
Like a working prototype.
A working
to test it.
prototype.
Yeah.
And so I guess the third one would be.
What was the question again?
What was the first
Just
3 steps?
The first 3 steps. And then not just hiring people around you, but resource. I'll use the word resource because not just getting employees, like, for example, developers and stuff like that, but building out our networks that were going to allow us to expand the business. So that was people that were potentially mentors for us in the early stages and advisors, or people that were connected to corporates that could potentially use our app. But building out our resources around us and our network was the third thing.
So what were some of the biggest challenges you faced, building the app?
Some of the biggest challenges, I guess, or one of the biggest things was, because my background is in technology, I would go and build, or I would produce apps for other brands, right? But these brands would have huge budgets, so you wouldn't even think about it. So when I thought I'm going to build an app, I was like, I do this all the time for other brands. It can't be that hard. But I think knowing the amount of work that goes into it as a startup without the funding, I mean, we bootstrapped it initially before we got investment. I underestimated how much time, energy, effort it would need. Yeah.
So the biggest challenge was, I don't understand, so what?
So the biggest challenge was, I guess...
like anything that you had to go through, like just a moment or a period of time that you had to overcome, what was, I'm talking about more in terms of an experience.
Yeah, so an experience. I think a big challenge or an experience is like having that faith in yourself. That was huge. To know that, like, even though you've done it before, you can do it for yourself, and to keep yourself motivated and feel good enough to do it and make it.
What's some of the techniques you use to build that self-confidence?
Other people, because I'm an extrovert, right? Really, honestly. I think
You own that.
So, yeah.
You said that 2 times in 20 minutes.
Yeah, I know, but I am. And I got my energy and I got my encouragement from really, really supportive people. Yeah, having coffees with a bunch of people. And, you said it before off camera, actually. Like you said about people getting advice. Oh, no, John said it. Sorry.
Yeah. John was the person we interviewed the day yesterday.
Yes.
Not today.
No, sorry.
It wasn't 20 minutes ago.
No. Sorry, cut that. Don't worry.
No, I'm just joking. I'm just making this episode fun. All right, so what did he say, actually? What did he say?
So I was going to say that John said, you'll get advice, a lot of advice, and you'll take some, and you also need to learn to leave some. So as much as I got support and everything from other people, there was a lot of advice that I also got that I was like, oh, you have to filter. Yeah.
I asked you, like, what was your challenge and experience? Like, I want to know, because you've been here for over a year and a half.
Yes.
Building a business in China is, it's not easy anywhere in the world, but there's a lot of things that you don't know at the start.
Totally.
So I would like for you to share maybe an experience, or maybe an episode where it was like you just totally got flipped on your head.
Yeah.
And you had to overcome it. What was the most recent experience or most devastating or dramatic experience that you've had to overcome here in China?
Yeah. It's all been to do with visas. And like, I know, that's annoying, isn't it? I can think of something more interesting.
But what was the visa thing? Because it is real. It is real. I woke up one day and said, damn, I have to leave this morning.
Yeah, so I had to leave. So last year, we were pitching to investors. It was like May or June last year, but I had to go on a visa run. And then I thought, okay, I'll just quickly go to Hong Kong and it will be really easy. But I got to Hong Kong and they were like, no, you've got to go back to Australia to get your visa because you can't be technically working in China.
You couldn't do the whole tourist visa thing?
No, because they knew that I had a startup by then. Like, as in, I had come in on a business visa prior to that, so they knew that I'd been working. So I got stuck in Hong Kong, and I missed the pitch here to the investor, which I still think we would have gotten a lot of money. But the worst is that I had to pay a lot of money to come back into the country for 30 days. That was because I was so desperate to get back to come and pitch to this investor that I missed the meeting anyway by the time I got my whole visa sorted. And the most that they would give me was a 30-day visa. So it was pretty devastating when I was just in the crux of like starting my business, trying to get investment here, missing the meeting, and then only being able to come back in for 30 days. and spending a lot of money.
Did you think that experience helped or hurt you? Well, what was the lesson?
What was the lesson? That I need to be far more organised, particularly also because it affected myself and one of my staff members. And so I'm quite disorganised in my personal life. Like I've got no routine whatsoever, absolutely none. But it made me realise in my business life, I have to be far more organised, and like I'm responsible for people, you know. Yeah. So it was a pretty big learning.
So overcoming that, and so you didn't get that investment.
No.
Yeah, and then, but was your partner in charge of it? Did your partner attend the meeting?
No, because she was out of the country.
She was
completely.
dang.
She was in the UK.
So you didn't get that one.
So
what's your mindset towards challenges and things of that nature?
I think I used to handle them pretty badly. Honestly, I used to react badly and think like, oh, why does this happen? But I've trained myself now to basically look at the challenges and work out what the solutions are. Yeah, I don't get overwhelmed by them anymore. I think this is a good challenge. Sure, I'll take it on. Bring it. Yeah, yeah. And I think that there is a solution for everything. Yeah.
You think it's a mindset? It just comes with experience, or
mindset and experience? It really does. Yeah, you have to train your mind a little bit to think optimistically.
But then after a while, you just get knocked down so many times. It's like it's nothing anymore. Like it's
but that gives me more ammunition to just more fire to be like, yeah, cool, I can do this. Nice. Knock me down, sure.
I like hearing that. I like hearing like those comeback stories and whatnot. So you had what about the transition from your job to starting your business? I'm pretty sure you've had to overcome. What are some of the challenges that you had when you jumped from?
So the challenges personally were stability, right? So, you roll your eyes. You're like, oh,
no, personal.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a question. I'm interviewing you, right?
Sure.
How do you overcome? Because you said you're an extrovert.
Yeah.
How do you overcome the feeling of loneliness? Or
I used to have a real issue with it. I used to not be able to sit at home by myself. Now I love it. Yeah. And I think it's because my days are so packed that even though I get my energy from other people, I've actually learnt to really enjoy my own company and really just enjoy time out to myself, like my me time. How did I overcome that? I had a therapist that helped me kind of work through some of the reasons why I would feel lonely and why I would need to get all my energy from other people. So it took time, experience, and a little bit of exhaustion, like being tired from interacting with so many people all the time, that I actually started enjoying being in my own space. Yeah.
The reason why I asked that is because, entrepreneurship. Do you think entrepreneurship is a lonely path?
I think it would be very, very lonely for people that didn't have co-founders or a team. Definitely. I think that I'm very fortunate to have a co-founder that we just bounce off each other. If I'm finding something really difficult, she's like, this is easy, let's fix it, and vice versa. But I speak to a lot of other entrepreneurs that are on their own, and I just go far out. I admire you so much, such respect, because sometimes when things are hard, if I was on my own, I don't know how I'd be able to pull myself up, kind of thing.
So I have a couple of quick questions, to wrap things up. Okay, so would you rather? I got this one now. Would you rather not work for a month, or have to go outside with sweatpants and house clothes for a month, and not look presentable and work?
The second one.
Not look presentable?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd still take working.
Right.
Yeah. For me, though, it's like working is like giving back, or yeah.
I don't know. I can't look bad and go to work at the same time. That's one thing I did love about my job is I work with all females.
Yeah,
right. It was really nice to dress nice.
As a designer,
as a designer, there's no dress code, which is really cool. Anyway, this is about you, not me, right? Right. Next one. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Whoa, ooh, far out. That's a good one. I haven't been asked that before. If I had a superpower, what would it be? I don't know. Is like doing something with homeless youth a superpower? If I had a superpower to make youth not homeless, that's not really a superpower though, is it?
You
Don't
have to
know.
you have to get a superpower to kind of fight
to do
that.
that,
to do that,
fight
yeah.
that.
You wouldn't know.
I have to come up with one.
You wouldn't know. Okay, we'll have to get back on that.
Yeah.
Season 2. All
Yeah.
right, so Season 2. All right, well, let's just say you got an investment for a company. The company skyrockets. Boom.
Yeah.
You never have to worry about money again.
Yep. What do I do?
What would you do?
That's a really great question. I go and live in Mexico in a very nice villa. But I spend my time volunteering and giving back to the community and working with children, I think. Yeah, working with like disadvantaged children. Yeah. I think no matter how much money I would ever possibly have, I would want to give back. Yeah.
And final question, which I ask all of my guests.
Yeah.
What is Shanghai in one word?
One word. I can't swear, right?
Of course. I mean, you can. I'll just bleep it out.
One word?
Yeah, one word.
Wild.
Thank you so much for the interview. Appreciate it. This was historic. And it's actually one of the funnest interviews I had back here in this studio.
Good.
Right? Appreciate it. Guys, if you'd like the interview, please subscribe to this channel. Check out the app. I'll leave the link to the app below. Download it.